Here's a 97 k1500 with the Ford Dana 60 kingpin front axle and a rear 14 bolt full float axle, 8 lug. So we went with the Ford Dana 60 because at the time we couldn't find a passenger side drop NP241 to make the Chevy axle work to keep the 6 lug. So we ended up just keeping the same transfer case and going with this driver side drop. And we ended up using the off-road design solid axle conversion bracket kit, and we ended up using off-road design for almost everything on this. They're out of Colorado. So to start, once we decided on the axle, we ended up ordering all the brackets and kits that they offer to make this swap easier. So the first thing we got was the bracket kit, which is this one here, and then the one that bolts back there by the frame. It's all a bolt-on kit, no welding. And we got some 73 to 87 half-ton leaf springs with 3-inch lift on them. This should give, the bracket alone should give 4 inches of lift, and then the leaf spring, since we got the 3-inch lift ones, should total about 6 or 7 inches once it's all said and done. We got their U-bolt kit as well, which is that right there. We used a 91 F350 shock and shock tower. Those unbolt out of the F350s, and then I just welded it onto the frame. Had to use some extended brake lines, also from Off-Road Design. We kept the factory steering box, but we had to change the pitman arm. And then from there, we also got the crossover steering kit, which bolts on top of the kingpin there, the kingpin caps for the steering. So he goes right there. Currently have it on 37-inch tires, 12.5 wide and 17-inch rim. Changed these to some more in one so that they didn't have that Ford pink red hub. Sitting at about 46 inches up to from the ground to here. And that's what the back mount for the leaf spring looks like. Like I said, it's all bolted on. So you just cut, maybe drill, grind, but no welding. I did have to cut off all of the independent suspension stuff off here. And these are my old ABS sensors, which I still have to finish that up. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna keep the ABS at least plugged in. Here on the draft shaft, we had to get if I recall correctly, it was 1310 U-joint yokes on transfer case and the axle. So we changed those to accept 1310s. It's just a regular drive shaft with a double cardan up here. Nothing too fancy. We don't do any kind of extreme off-roading, so we just wanted it functional. This is the factory NP241 for this truck, and it's a driver side drop. If you want to use a Chevy axle, you would need a NP241 out of a 89, 90, or 91 Suburban. And those came with the 9091 came with the VSS, and then the transfer case is actually on the passenger side, so that way you can keep your passenger side drop Chevy axle. So like I said, that's what we were struggling with the most. Once I was completed, I found about 4 of them, but a little too late. The other thing I did here was the exhaust. It wasn't going to clear the drive shaft. It would go down and then curve, so I had to sort of just cut it, and this was my temporary MacGyver to make it work, but it ended up being permanent because it doesn't leak, so I just left it on. So I just got a 90/45, and then the stock pipe, just cut it and welded differently, and then I had to clock the cat here to clear this bracket. So I just cut it off, and then I just clocked it and welded it back on, and then everything else here was clamped. Some of them welded on, but it's working so far. So far so good. On the rear, so everything here's factory. The same half-ton drive shaft. And here we have to put since this is a 14-bolt full float off of a 2500, I have to get a U-joint so that I can hook up the drive shaft to this yoke. I'll see if I can find the part number for that. I found it on the forums and looked it up at O'Reilly's, and they had it. This is just like I said, a regular 14 bolt 410 gears to match the front. I did the U-bolt kit with a lift block on it, and the leaf springs are out of that same 2500 95 C2500. Just a stock, no lift on that, and then we just lifted it with the block. We have to get the extended brake lines here, the steel braided ones. So here in the back, we did a reverse shackle kit, also from Off-Road Design. Again, it's just bolted on, so grinded off the old rivets and then just bolted this one back on. And that's how it sits. I gathered parts for about 6 months to about 6 months. First found the axle and then started gathering all the brackets because the brackets are all specific to which axle you're going to end up using. So gathered parts for about 6 months, and then once I had most of the stuff I needed, I just took about, I want to say about 2 or 3 weekends, you know, maybe so 5-6 days, and cut it off. I'm not a professional fabricator by any means, so just me by myself, about 3 weekends, and it was completed. A bunch of other little things later on, like the drive shaft, so that adds to it. But as far as functional wise, in about 2 to 3 weekends, I already had it test driving in the street. And the prices have changed since I did the kit, but they're not so much higher than they were when I bought them in 2021. That's how it is.